What is going on, everybody? So today in our Just the Tip series, I'm going to learn you how to do the axle clean and press. So this is an event that has a lot of movements going on. A lot of people think that it's just a simple clean and press, but when we look at the axle, we typically use what's called a continental clean, which is where we pick it up from the ground, rest it on our abdomen, flip it up from there to the shoulders, and then continue with the press. So there's a lot that goes into the clean portion before we even can begin the press. Now, in this event in Strongman, 3 different ways we can see the axle clean and press in our sport. We can see it for a 1 rep max, we can see it in a medley of sorts, or we can see it for a clean and press for reps or a clean once press for reps. So I guess that's 4. Counting isn't my strong suit. So today what we're going to do is just go over the fundamentals of the continental clean and then go into the press. Now the nice thing with the press is in Strongman, it can be any type of press you want. Strict press, push jerk, split jerk, you name it, you can do it. Get it overhead, that's all that matters, as long as you get the down call. But in order to get it from the ground to your shoulders, a lot has to happen first. So when we look at the continental clean, we're going to start with our clean position. Typically what I tell people is you want to take your deadlift stance. That's going to be the most comfortable for you when picking something off the ground. We're also going to be taking a mixed grip on the deadlift. So we're going to have an over-under grip on the barbell, on the axle. And that's going to allow us to make sure grip isn't a factor in this event. Now that being said, taking an over-under grip does put us at risk for an increased risk of injury for a potential bicep injury with the hand that is under. So something you have to be aware of when doing this event is not to initiate the pull on the axle with your arms, right? So we want to see a nice elongated arm, especially with the underhand. Initiate the pull with our hips and our back as opposed to pulling with the arms first. When we see that initial pull with the arms, that's when we see the biceps tend to go. We see a nice little roll up into the shoulder and we have the injury that occurs. So we're going to take our deadlift stance, get nice and comfortable. For me, hands are going to go just to the outside of our knees. Again, kind of like a deadlift position. Our initial pull, we're going to be grabbing the bar, and essentially we want to aim for the bottom of our sternum, right? So we have this piece of our sternum called the xiphoid process. It's right at the base of our sternum. We want to go just below that and kind of sit just on top of our abs. Now, being bigger and strongman, having a power belly gives us that a nice little resting position for the axle to rest on. But those of you that are leaner, you can still achieve this by having a little bit of spinal extension, pushing the knees out, not forward, and getting a little, and as long as you stay braced, you're not putting your low back in any risk of injury. So that initial pull, we're gonna get set, our feet are nice and set in our deadlift position. I'm gonna grab my over-under grip just outside the knees. Gonna keep that arm nice and straight, initiate the pull with our hips and our back, and we're gonna pull it to that position right at the bottom of our sternum. Now, when we get here, we need to flip this underhand on top of the bar. Now, in this position, you can see we want my elbows nice and high. That's gonna allow us to get a lot of momentum to dip and drive and flip the barbell up onto our shoulders. Now, another way we could do this, if you're confident enough and athletic enough, is actually switch the underhand on top of the barbell as you're doing your pull. Something that I'll show now, because what that's going to do is when the bar lands on your stomach, it's going to put you in that elbows high, both hands over position, and it's one less step you have to take and is a little bit more efficient. So that's going to look like this. And we catch it in that spot, right? So we see elbows are nice and high. I'm leaning back a little bit, sticking my stomach out, and the bar is resting nice and comfortably. Now from that position, we have to get it from here up onto our shoulders in order to press. As I alluded to a little bit before, when we're in this position, elbows have to stay nice and upright. We're leaning back. Big thing in terms of knee position is when we dip to get a pop in order to get the bar to our shoulders, we want to think about pushing our knees out, trying to stay upright in our hips instead of pushing forward, and that's going to push our hips forward, putting a lot of pressure on that lumbar spine, which is going to put us at an increased risk of injury for a potential disc pathology. So in this position, we want to be knees out. That's going to be a good dip position for us because our hips can stay vertical, and we're going to pop it, rotate our hands around the bar, shooting our elbows forward and catching the bar in a rack position on our shoulders. Now, with this movement, a lot has to happen. A lot of people are gonna wanna try to cling onto the bar, keep a really tight grip, and that's gonna make it hard to get into this position, because when you land in your press position, you're gonna kind of be locked here with an elbow pointing down. When we're pressing, we wanna try to get our elbows just ahead in front of our torso to give us a better leverage for the press. So what you have to think about is being explosive off the stomach, letting the bar rise, and letting your hands actually rotate around the bar. So having a loose grip and just kind of guiding it into place in order to get a nice comfortable rack position in order to begin the press. So the full clean from ground to stomach to shoulders looks something like this. So again, looks kind of easy, but there's a lot of moving parts. So working from the ground up, once again, we had our feet in about a deadlift width position, hands just to the outside of that with an over-under grip, making sure my underhand is nice and elongated. We're not initiating that pull with the arms, but with the hips and the back. We pull the bar to our sternum, or just below the sternum. We get into a nice spinal extended position, but still brace through the core. We catch it with both of our hands over the bar with our elbows nice and high. We're gonna dip, pushing our knees out, being able to keep our hips vertical instead of pushing our knees forward, putting more strain on that lumbar spine. And then we pop it up onto the shoulders, letting the hands rotate around the bar, catching it in a nice rack position in order to initiate the press. Again, the nice thing about the press in this event, it could be any kind of press you want, whether that be strict, push, push jerk, or split jerk. And then from there, you get to personalize it to yourself. Now, if you're doing it for reps, doing that transition of the hand over, catching it on the sternum, and then going right into the clean and into the rack position is gonna be most efficient. If you have the grip strength, again, an axle is a 2-inch diameter bar, to go double overhand, you absolutely can do that. But what we have to think about strategically in a strongman competition is typically we see a pressing event as event number 1. If you have other grip events later in the contest, doing a double overhand on this event is going to tax your grip a little bit and make it tougher later down the road. So again, this sport's all about strategy, maximizing efficiency, and being good for the entire show. So what I'm going to do now is show you kind of the quick version of it, right? So I was more deliberate last rep, brought it to my sternum, took a breath, then popped and went. What I'm going to do now is on the clean, I'm going to catch it on my sternum in the dip and pop it directly up onto my shoulders, then go into the press. Again, just showing a more efficient version of this movement. So as you saw there, because it was decently light, and this is something you can practice and get more comfortable with, is being able to catch, rotate the hand during the catch in the bottom of the dip position, again, pushing my knees out, not forward, hips nice and vertical, and then we can dip and drive, pop it up onto the shoulders. There was a lot going into this movement. There's a lot from the clean, there's a risk of injury, and it's arguably one of the more technical lifts that we do in this sport of strongman. But if you follow these steps, be smart in your training, be smart in your setup, and minimizing the risk of injury, it really is something that's a lot of fun to do and can be great for you in contest. As always, make sure you check out the sponsors down below in the description that support me and keep me going in my strongman journey. And until next time, power through.
UK, right on. Hey, man. Amazing.
This is Wim Hof, everyone.
I call him Eddie Temple, not Eddie Hall.
One of the craziest men I've ever seen or heard of in your life.
I'm just crazy about life and my wife, and that's not crazy
Life
after all.
That is a very good philosophy there.
Yeah, man. Hey, good.